Hello, I'm Peter Stein, and I'm the executive director alumnus of the San Francisco Jewish Film Festival. Welcome to our conversation with Asaf Galay, the director of the Adventures of Saul Bellow. Welcome, Asaf.
Hello.
And thank you to James, who's doing ASL interpretation for us. So Asaf, you're joining us today from Western Massachusetts. Thank you for your film. Congratulations on it. And it's great to see you. The San Francisco Jewish Film Festival had the opportunity to screen a prior film of yours, and this, which was a kind of a biography of a Swedish rock band who made Aliyah to Israel. This is a very, very different topic, Asaf. So tell me a little bit about how you first became interested in Saul Bellow.
So before my last film, The Army of Lovers in the Holy Land, I showed also in the San Francisco film my film about Asaf Bashevis Singer. And this is also how this project started, because when Isaac in my film, I'm tracing Asaf Bashevis Singer's 48 women translators. But his first translator was Saul Bellow, that brought him the big fame. So when I screened my film in New York, came Adam, the son of Saul Bellow, and watched the film about Asaf Bashevis, and he told me, I want that you will make a film about my father like this. Tell everything. Don't make it hagiographic. Don't make it too sweet. Tell everything. I want something like this, and he deserved it. So this was my initiative to start this project.
Well, it's not an easy assignment to take on the life of someone who is so complicated, and someone about whom people hold a variety of opinions. In fact, I came across an article in the New Yorker magazine recently by Louis Menand, and he wrote, quote, "Every book that has been written about Bellow by someone who was close to him is to some degree hostile toward its subject." um, and while I don't think your film is hostile toward Saul Bellow, it is warts and all. And so I'm wondering what it was like for you to spend time with someone who was so complicated, and whether you had any concerns about presenting a central subject who not just is complicated, but sometimes is, not always a likable man.
Uh, so first, to do something that is more complicated, it's better for film. But as a documentary filmmaker, to make a film about a writer, this is so challenging. I can tell you that to make a film about a filmmaker, it's much easier. Oh, the other thing is to make a film about dancer, because it's another great film. But to make a film about a writer, that writer always don't like the medium of television or cinema. This is all, it's already a big challenge. So his complex thing in life just make it a little bit easier, because then there is a good story to tell. There is two opinions. You can show some conflict. So for me, was adventures in the story. If you have a writer that he's writing great literature, but he has a normal, boring life, so why to make a film about him? Go and read his books.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the challenge of doing a film, really doing any media-based examination of someone whose main talent is prose, is the actual quality of the literature that they produce. What did you feel you needed to show about Bellow's, the actual quality of his writing? What did you want to capture? Because I think you do, particularly in the early part of the film, spend some time talking about and having Philip Roth and others speak about the actual sort of groundbreaking nature of his writing. How did you approach that challenge? And were there some aspects of writing that really were simply impossible to translate into a film medium?
Yes, it's very hard in our day when to challenge how to make writing into the screen. And so there is several several ways to show it. There is in nowadays animation and to try to visualize it, to try to dramatize things like this. I try to be very, very simple, very pure, just that the people that he wrote about them will read it with their own eyes, with their own voice. They didn't bring like a famous actor to read it that know how to read literature, because to read literature it's already a great skill. And the only thing, when people were reading, you will see it in the movie, when people are reading, there is only the words. And it's so simple. And I kept it like this. It was really important to me. I know that maybe I missed that I didn't do dramatize of it and try to do hybrid things. I try to be very, very put the text, the prose in the center of the film.
Right. I like that very pure approach. It also is tempting often to, I mean, you did have the dramatization in the drama workshop of the Adventures of Augie March, which began to give a sense of what these dialogues might feel like if they were inhabited by actors, which I thought was a nice, gentle way to get us into his prose.
Yes.
But the fact of really centering the words on the page, I thought was a really pure and thoughtful choice. The other um, sort of the follow-on to this question of the quality of his writing is that you really choose to focus a lot on the connections and the overlaps between the characters that he creates and the actual people in his life. So talk a little bit about why that looms so important in your film and not just in his writing.
I think that for me, my father is a Yiddish writer. So I came from a family. I wanted to be a writer, to tell you the truth. I wanted to be, but I'm not that talent at all. I cannot do it. I admire writers, but I always, when you meet writers, there is this gap between the writing and their personal life, and this is invention of the text. So it's so important to me to show that life and art are connected and not connected, but always to show this the tension between both of them. So there is documentary that are trying only just talk about the writer's skills and writing, and it's becoming more like a lecture about in the university about his writing, and I think that it's a little bit boring. I try to do both of the things.
Right. There are also films or treatments about writers or artists who only talk about the biography
Yeah.
and leave aside the actual, artistic
Yeah.
or cultural production. And I think it's helpful in this case. Bellow mind the people in his life and almost, it seems from your film anyway, almost shamelessly sort of form them into the characters in his
Yeah,
novels. So it really, his writing really invites a biographical lens to map one
yeah,
person onto one character, and you do that pretty
yeah,
well. Um, you also obviously had a tremendous amount of research as well as cooperation from the people in his life. Tell us a little bit
yeah.
about how that process went. Were doors opened immediately by his sons to the various wives and girlfriends and lovers in Bella's life, or did you have to a lot of convincing to do to get people to sit down with you?
No, the people, his family and friends were really open. The most difficult interview was to get Mr. Philip Roth. That and in the end, I had the chance to get the last interview with him. But before that, Philip Roth, it was 2016. The film took, by the way, almost 6 years to make it. So it's a very 5.5 years. It's such a challenge to make films in nowadays. Uh, but so first I approached Mr. Roth and said, I quit. I quit writing. I quit giving interviews. My back is hurt. Bye bye. And then I started the process of nudging and telling him, but if Bello was alive, he would say to you, no, wow, you were his best friend. And he said, okay, we'll think about it, but remember that we are also not such a good friends. He stole my girlfriend. I wrote him a very bad book in The Ghostwriter. So we are not. Later we became again friends, but I told him it's okay. It's part of life to be good friends, to have a good fight, and then to become that. So I said, okay, okay, come to my house uh, only for 25 minutes.
Oh my
I said,
gosh.
okay, 25 minutes with us, it's worth it. And then I came to his house and he started to talk about Bello. I think that in the end he talked about himself, by the way. Over 2 hours. It was amazing interview. I couldn't edit. I thought in one phase of the film I said only to make a film Roth on Bello, something like this. I said, okay, forget everything, do an easy film. Yes, and it was, but he really consistent. 2 times he told me, no, I don't want to interview to your film. So
Wow.
we
Well,
always
first of all,
tell people,
yeah,
if somebody say to you no, try it again.
yes, a no is just an invitation to a negotiation. Yes.
Yeah,
Well, first of all, congratulations on your persistence, and I'm so glad you had a chance to interview Philip Roth about Bello, because you can tell there's just a light in his eyes when he's speaking of him, and I do wonder whether you might do something more with that interview, because clearly you caught him at a very expansive
yeah.
moment. Do you think you might make use of other parts of the interview?
As far as I understand, all the interviews, the film will be in American Masters in fall 2020. And part of their website is all the interviews and all the full interviews. So we'll be there, the interview with Philip Roth and the whole interview with Salman Rushdie, Martin Amis, James Atlas that died also during the film, and all the other that they filmed
Good.
them,
So
Chris Scout. Uh,
so the archive will be available.
the archive will be available for the public in part of the American Masters.
Um, Back to kind of the character of Saul Bellow and how he comes across in your film, which I think is brave in that it's not a hagiography, and obviously you were encouraged by his family to make it kind of warts and all. That said, when you're a biographer, whether you're writing a biography like James Atlas did, or whether you're making this kind of film, you in some ways have to fall in love with your central character because you're basically living with them. how was that process for you? And did you ever really get mad at Bellow for being
Oh
such a jerk
yes.
sometimes?
I think that this is also you became with. I start with the admire point. I admire them. They are gods for me. Later, they are becoming in a less degree, and after that, there is the degrees that you hate your protagonist. You think, I could never do it. Especially in my last film about Asaf Galay Singer, that how he treated his only son, and then later you change your mind and see more complex. So it's a whole process with someone, and in the end, you the things that you brings you, it's going back to their books and reread them and become again. See them in the two eyes, the good, the bad, and the whole story.
Um, the, you were also, I think, very attentive to getting people to talk about and finding subjects who were willing to address Bellow critically from the standpoint of his characterization of women and his characterization, particularly of
Right.
African Americans.
Yeah.
Did you wrestle with that at all? How I mean, the scene in I think it's Mr. Somler's
Planet.
uh, I'm blanking now on the title of
Mr.
the book.
Summer's Planet.
Planet. Yes, thank you. That scene in which the pickpocket exposes himself is really, it's ghastly to listen to and to read, and it's I thought it was brave of you to bring this up because did you wrestle at all with how to bring up the problems of Bellow's uh, themes from a modern day standpoint?
First, there is many scholars work about these themes, and there is, of course, I interview Vivian Gornick that wrote a big scholarship about it, and there is a big scholarship. For me, it's only to take already things that people wrote about them and critiqued, and just to bring them to the screen. I'm not I wanted to be maybe a literary scholar, but I really, this is also part of, I got funded by the National Endowment for Humanity. So it's part of it. It's also to get a lot of scholars, new kind of new readings, new research, and to be very updated.
One of the issues that your film raises is whether Bellow's own reputation has suffered or fallen a bit in a more contemporary consciousness, or maybe a contemporary dismissal or intolerance of some of the um, egregious sexism or racism or misogyny that is in some of his work. What do you think about that?
I think that in Bellow case, the criticism on him already started on the 70s, 80s, 90s. And it's not that it's something of the last 5, 6 years. So it's already there. So so it's really important to look and see how people can read this literature after the critique, and to get the best of it, to of course not to accept everything in it, to see it in new eyes, and to be part of still of the great literature canon. So it's really important. Also, it's a good case study for things that right now are still in the bubbling and steaming conflicts in American culture, because what happened to Bellow, it's already like old news. It's from the 90s and the 70s.
So you think he was an early example of someone who might have been caught up in the cancel culture or the the
Yes, yes, he's
opprobrium
the
of.
first one. Yes, he's the first one that was there.
So you started work on this.
So
Yeah.
right, we are in the right this side, and this became so. It's really important to see with his case where how to how to look in art in the history of the 20th century art, if it's literature, if it's in television, if it's in dance, and
You obviously worked and completed the film without the opportunity ever to interview your main protagonist. He
yes,
was
I try to
had
do
passed away.
it when I do literature. I try to do it about people that already passed there. It's very challenging to do a film about somebody that he's alive and you admire him. But sometimes I do it, like in my last film about
Right. So
Jean-Pierre Varda, and we became such
my
a good
question
friend.
my question about that is, if he were alive, if after much cajoling as you did with Philip Roth, a living Saul Bellow were to walk through your door and say, "Okay, I'll give you 25 minutes,"
Wow,
what would
wow, wow.
what would you want to know from Saul
I will
Bellow
tell you
himself?
what I wanted. I know already because was part of my research for this film to hear his jokes, his humor. He had such a great humor. And I asked all my interviewees to tell what jokes he told them, and no one succeeded. No one ever told me he's good. Everybody will remember mumbling, half jokes, and killed the humor feel. And I will tell you, Bello, give me your stand up now, 25 minutes, only jokes.
I think this might be your next project, Asaf, is to create the fictional stand-up routine and set a 20-minute set starring Saul Bellow. That's fascinating. And what about some of the I love the answer that that's what you'd want to hear from him. What about some of the mysteries or question marks in his either biography or his drive? Do you feel like
I
those are
think that
well documented?
it's well documented. He answered this. He maybe I think that in this I could cover it with archival footage. Uh, but for here, how he tells the true jokes. Also, in a lot of interviews, he's like making a chess play with the interviewer. So I don't like to make chess play. I will lose. I don't know to play very well chess. I more play. I forgot the name of it.
Checkers.
The checkers. Yes, this is
Or sheshbesh, right? Um,
exactly. How do you say sheshmesh in English? Okay.
Backgammon, yeah.
Okay. So this is my game. So
So you've spent now 5.5 years examining the life of a very complex character. Is there someone next on your radar, that
I have
project that
like
you're working
I've
on?
always several things that I'm doing, and you are cooking in one place and it's steaming up very fast, like the film about Army of Lovers. I did it in 1 year. So now I'm already for the last 2 years. I'm doing a film about the Fleischer brothers. They were the Jewish families that created the animation world. They were the
Oh,
big
of course.
rivals
Oh, yes.
of Disney. They did Popeye and Betty Boop and Superman and Coco the Clown. And this is a Jewish animation. And I compare it to Disney, that it's non-Jewish animation. And of course, Disney won this rivalry, and he's the biggest Disney media corporation in the world. And there is no Fleischer land.
Right. That fascinating, and there you will have no problem visualizing the work of these artists because their art was already visual. Good
Exactly. I said
choice.
that this time
Well,
I
I'm
will
sure.
have. I say to myself that this time I will have easier job in this part.
Good. I'm glad you gave yourself a little bit of a break, but I'm also really glad that you very doggedly took on the work and the life of Saul Bellow. The film, of course, is The Adventures of Saul Bellow. I hope everyone has a chance to see it or has seen it. And congratulations, Asaf. It's just been
Thank you.
delightful to see your work, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much. And I hope that the next one we will meet in person in the great Castro Theater. I love the theater. I have such a great memories for showing there two of my films. Just looking, go back to normal life.
Yes, we all look forward to that. But this was a good second choice.
Yes.
Thanks, Asaf.
Thank
Great to see
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.